Hey all. So in the last one, we got our Fast API backend set up, and right now we just have one basic endpoint which just returns a dictionary saying hello world. And so in this one, what I want to do is I want to redo that backend now to actually be able to start returning all of our athletes. So yeah, let's get into it. Alright, so to start off, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new file on the back end, and we'll call this database.py. And then in this, what we want to do is we want to actually read DuckDB from this. So we need to import DuckDB, and then we'll create a function to do that. We'll call this getAthletes. And then we'll make a variable called dbpath, and this will be equal to what the actual database is called. So we'll call this athletes.duckdb. And then, so what we're going to do is, um, let's see if I can go back on here. Just to show you what we previously had. Okay. So what we did before is we connected to the backend. We connected to the database, and then we actually did our SQL query, transformed it into a data frame, and then we closed the connection. Now, this type thing is kind of annoying because we have to manage connections and we have to close the connection every time. So, modern databases, what they actually have in their ORM, which is what allows you to connect to it from Python or any other language, is they have what's called the context manager, which basically manages those resources for you. So the way that we can do that is we can actually use a with statement, and so we'll do with duckdb.connect, and then there's, okay, we just do that and dbpath and that as the connection. So the connection, this con right here, this is the actual object. So when this with statement is done, it'll just close it automatically for us, so we don't have to manage it. So that makes it really nice. So the query is, it's going to be basically exactly what we had before. So select all from athletes. And then what I want to do is, because we're returning this now over an API, it's going to, if we return the whole thing, it is going to take a noticeably larger amount of time, which we can fix by putting in different filters in the future. But for right now, I'm just going to do limit 1000. And then get the result of that. So result equals calling the connection object, and then we just say that we want to execute, and then we just pass the query. Query equals, I guess that's fine. And then what do we want to do? We want to fetch everything from that, and then just return the result. Okay, so that's our database file. Just put in quick docstring, say get from database. Okay, so and then in our routes, what we want to do is we want to say from dot, so that's the current directory. Or actually, we can just import database and it automatically recognizes that it's just the database file in here. So I'm also going to import a custom exception, HTTP exception, because we're going to transform this into a try catch. So we're going to try to use to return database dot get athletes, and notice that it's the same function name, but we're preceding it with database. And that works because if instead we did like from database import get athletes, then if we called get athletes, this would get confused with this and lead into an infinite loop, which we don't want. So, and then for any exception that's being thrown, we'll say exception as X. We then want to raise an HTTP exception, which takes in, a status code. So we'll put in a 500, which is recognized as an internal server error usually. And then I believe it's just the actual message. So just X. Let me check my notes. Okay. It is on the detail parameter. So detail equals, and then we just want to cast this exception to a string. And then also what we want to do is I want to have the actual traceback that appears. So in the Python standard library, you actually have the traceback library that you can use here. So when an exception occurs, you can actually print it to the screen by just saying traceback dot print exec or exec, whatever you want to call it. Then do that, and then let's bring this over and do a little refresh. Okay. So now we're actually getting stuff in here. We're still getting an exception though. So for this error, it's somewhat expected because on plot.py we're not actually returning anything. So let's just set this to data equals res.json. And then so if we return data like this and then save it and then bring it back over and refresh, then notice it gives you this error because this is returning a list object, which is not what we want. We want a data frame object. But if we do that just on the front end here, so I'll show you. If we do df equals pd dot data frame, and then data, and then let's also do st.write the data frame, and then we'll also return the data frame. And bring this guy back over. And you see, so we're getting this data frame properly, but it doesn't actually have any headers, and that is because Plotly doesn't actually know about that. So we don't want to convert it to a data frame on the back end. What we can actually do, set that back to data, and then go to the database here. And so what we'll do is you can get a .description object, and that actually has the description of everything. So if we just do, we want to get both of these essentially. So we'll say that's the result, and then we're going to return a dictionary now. So all the athletes are going to be in result.fetchAll. And then we also need the columns here. So it's not enough to just say result.description because that's going to contain more than what we need. So let me show you. So if we just print result.description and save that, and then bring this back over, refresh it. Okay. Here you go. So you've got all the column names here, and then you've got the actual data type is the second object. So we want these column names. So this is returning a series of, they're like big tuples, and we just want the first object, right? So the way that we can do that is we'll delete that print statement right there, and then so we'll say we'll use the little list comprehension to be able to do this. So we'll do call 0 for, and then call is going to be the variable. So call is going to be the tuple, and then we want to just get whatever the first object in the tuple is. So then if we go ahead and save that and come back over to plot.py here. So now res.json should have both of those here. So if we go back to creating our pandas data frame, so pd.dataframe, and then so the data is going to be the data athletes. Athletes. And then this also takes a columns attribute here. So this will just be the list of column names that we have. So we'll just say data columns. And then just to show you what that is, so st.write and then data frame. And save that. Bring that back over here. Okay. So you see you have athlete, name, region, team, blah, blah, blah. All that stuff that we want. And it looks like the last thing I need to do is just return the data frame instead of the data. So do that. And bring over this thing. Perfect. Now I have the whole scatter plot back. So the last thing to do then is just take out this streamlit.write since we don't need that anymore. Go ahead and refresh this. Okay. And so now we have what we had before. So if we set that. Okay, the URL params are still there. Great. Okay, cool. Alright, so that is how we can create our athletes endpoint now. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.